Africa, you are everybody's blue-eyed boy if you canvass peaceful methods, which everybody knows don't stand a snowball's chance in hell of succeeding. The minute you suggest something that is just likely to turn the trick, then very quickly you become an ogre. But I go back to saying Desmond Tutu speaks for Desmond Tutu. And those who want to listen to Desmond Tutu, do so. Those who don't want to, it's a free country.
Now, we have had a great deal of publicity from the visit of Archbishop Tutu. Archbishop Tutu is, of course, a very strong critic of the apartheid system and has gone round the world and then goes back to South Africa, where he is Archbishop of Cape Town and Primate of the Anglican Church. His advocacy of sanctions would be regarded with a great deal of doubt by the Black Mine Workers Union.
Sanctions would not benefit any South African. In fact, we'll be the losers. All what should be done is that we must be given equal opportunities by these companies from foreign countries and ignore the government's policy. During that time, there was job preservation. I said, even though job preservation is in the statute book of South Africa, foreign companies should ignore that law and employ every person according to his ability and his efficiency. And this exactly happened after 1971 when I returned from America, and South Africa was flourishing. By 1980, 82, you know, the industries were really booming. But then, all of a sudden, here comes people like Bishop Tutu, who then advocated for sanctions. And again, now the world took it upon itself that they were doing the right thing, that is to get rid of apartheid. We all hate apartheid. But at least people were now adjusting themselves to better conditions, better employment, better promotions, and better education. And now with these sanctions that have been advocated, to me it has spelled a death knell to a black man.
We do not believe the way to help the people of South Africa is to cripple the economy upon which they and their families depend for survival. Alan Paton, South Africa's great writer, for years the conscience of his country, declared himself emphatically.
I believe in the exercise of the moral pressure of America, very much. I'm very much great believer in that. And I think sometimes Americans underestimate the amount of pressure that they can exert. But I would be totally opposed to disinvestment. For one simple reason, because I'm a Christian, and the idea of putting a black man out of a job because of something that I believe in, I couldn't do it.
Many Americans are very simplistic when they think that this can bring about change. And they are very simplistic in not examining the issue very closely. Because my brothers in the external mission of ANC believe in a socialist future. So they're not really concerned, therefore, about just toppling the regime. They regard the free enterprise capitalist system as a wicked system, as wicked as apartheid itself. And they would like to destroy it as well. So that they're not concerned about using this investment to bring about change in this country. They are using it, in fact, to destroy the capitalist system as well. And I think this is an issue which Americans completely overlook, that these people are using them to achieve their own objectives, which have nothing to do with bringing about change in South Africa, but which have something to do with setting up a socialist or even a Marxist state in this country.
Sanctions will weaken apartheid, and this will be a contribution to our struggle. When you give solidarity to us, you are not helping some needy, poor blacks in the jungles of Africa. You are promoting your own struggle in your own country, because the liberation of South Africa you are promoting your own struggle in your own country, because the liberation of South Africa will mean the weakening of international imperialism.
In that tormented land, the window remains open for peaceful change. For how long, we know not. But we in the West, privileged and prosperous and free, must not be the ones to slam it shut. Now is a time for healing. The people of South Africa, of all races, deserve a chance to build a better future. And we must not deny or destroy that chance.
After Mr. Reagan's speech refusing to impose sanctions upon South Africa, I heard Bishop Tutu, from his study in South Africa, say these words: "The West, as represented by President Reagan, can go to hell as far as I'm concerned." That is something Martin Luther King would never have said about the West or millions of people or anybody's president. His goal was not to put people in hell, it was to keep people out of hell.
I think that the West might be as realistic as the so-called frontline states are. They are all supposed to be ardently for sanctions. They aren't. We are cutting out one South African Airways flight a week. The frontline states of South Africa, that's Zaire, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi and so on, have 186 flights a week into South Africa. And they have their aircraft engines maintained by South African Airways. And they actually, Mozambique actually leases South African Airways planes. So you have this extraordinary contradiction. And overwhelmingly, their trade goes through South Africa. And they have clearly explained to the African National Congress, don't you dare sabotage Africa's railways, because from 66% to 100%, if you took Swaziland, that's surrounded by South African territory, has to be 100% of their exports and imports go across South African railways. And a British diplomat in Pretoria said to me the reason why Britain didn't favour sanctions was that they believed that ultimately it would be the ruin of the whole of Southern Africa.
I believe that I have made 3 discoveries, simple but overwhelmingly strong, since coming to Africa. First, that whatever the ANC started out to be, it can no longer promise South Africans anything more than bloodshed and suffering of the vilest kind. Whatever its most well-meaning supporters may once have hoped for, or hope for still, should it succeed in its Marxist-Leninist revolutionary aims, all hope for a free, democratic and prosperous society will be over. South Africa will become one more squalid, bankrupt and ruthless tyranny, of the kind that countenances no reform and no criticism. Africa already has an abundance of these. Second, that South Africa is a profoundly religious place. I am certain that the great majority of South Africans want reconciliation through peaceful change. They see this as fundamental to the beliefs they hold. Nowhere is this more movingly shown than among the greatly wronged black and coloured people themselves. It is equally clear to me that we in the West have hardly begun to inform ourselves about South Africa. We have refused to see that there are millions and millions of moderate black Africans with brave, clever and long-suffering leaders, not one of whom is properly listened to by most Western politicians and most Western media. And this is to our great shame. Finally, too many of our political and moral leaders have accepted uncritically the authority and agenda of extremists who have no proven mandate from the black people of South Africa. What I have learned has persuaded me that the imposition of trade sanctions will ultimately destroy the possibility of a politically and economically free South Africa. But far worse than that, we will have on our hands the malnutrition, illness, despair and death of what may become hundreds and thousands of children and their families. Can we find the courage to admit we have been wrong?
They look to see who is in the road to their path to power, and they are not about improving the conditions of people. They are about taking power.